afternoon, or good evening, as the case may be. My name is Carl Pearson. I'm the Associate Director in the Center for the Study of the Middle East. And it's a pleasure to welcome you all to the third in our 2025 Women Scholars Talk series. We started this series last year with much success, and so we've continued it into this year thanks to the invaluable help of a Center for the Study of the Middle East Senior Fellow, Nagar Partow. So I will turn it over to her to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carl, and welcome everyone to our fourth discussion this time on the topic of Women Scholarly Talk. We do have some more speakers, and we are very delighted to have speakers from all different parts of the world contributing to the series. I'm very pleased today to welcome Dr. Raha Sabet Sarvestany to today's sessions of the Women Scholars Talk. Dr. Sabet Sarvestany is a scholar and an activist with a PhD in Women's Studies from University of Pune in India. She's currently a lecturer and a postgraduate researcher at the Turku Institute for Advanced Studies in Finland and has previously held academic positions at Turku University, the University of Oslo, and different institutions in Iran and India. Dr. Raha's interdisciplinary expertise spans gender studies, Iranian studies, religious minorities, migration, political religion, academic freedom, and social movements. Her research focuses on the agency and resilience of women from marginalized community, particularly the Baha'i community in Iran, and draws on qualitative methods, including interviews, cultural narratives, and documentary analysis. She's the author of the forthcoming monograph called Minority Woman and Agency in Iran, the Unyielding Voices of Women of the Baha'i Community. It will be published by Routledge in 2025. And she has contributed to several edited volume and scholarly article on interdisciplinarity, political subjectivity, and resistant movements. In addition to her academic work, Dr. Sarvestany has been actively engaged in teaching, mentoring, and field-based research with NGOs and educational institutions across Iran, India, and Europe. So today she will be presenting a talk titled Othering and Hate, the Baha'i Community's Agency and Discourse in Iran Transformative Era, which builds on her broader research into social exclusion, religious identity, and collective resilience. So very welcome, Dr. Raha, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nagar, and it's really a pleasure to be with you. It's honor for me, especially being with Dr. Nata Saidi, which I have read a lot of his scholarly work about Baha'i faith and Baha'i theology and Baha'i history. And it's really, really an honor to be here. I have also, I don't know if you can see is it clear, the PowerPoint? Or
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so as you mentioned, it's a paper which is going on. Actually, it's not complete, but I'm going to share some part of that, a very short summary of what I learned through study about this othering and hate, this topic. It's an honor to have an opportunity to discuss a deeply relevant and profoundly overlooked topic, the agency and discourse of the Baha'i community in Iran. As a religious minority, the Baha'is have endured over 2 centuries of marginalization, exclusion, and systematic repression. Their story, however, is not merely one of victimhood, but also resilience, intellectual engagement, and active contribution to Iran's evolving social and cultural landscape. For today, shortly, I will explore how the Baha'i community, despite being labeled as the other in Iran's religious political discourse, has played a significant role in shaping intellectual and social transformation. To explore this, I will examine three key questions. What are the core principles of Baha'i thought? How do these principles shape both individual and collective actions? And how has the Baha'i community, even under severe persecution, contributed to Iran's broader social and political discourse? By exploring both historical and contemporary perspectives, this discussion seeks to provide a deeper understanding of the Baha'i community's agency, challenging narratives that depict them solely as passive victims of oppression. Instead, it highlights their unwavering commitment to justice, education, and social progress, showcasing their role as active contributors to the transformative process within Iranian society. For the first question, which is what are the core principles of Baha'i perspective and discourse? The Baha'i thought conceptualizes a new stage in humanity's development. It perceives human history as an evolutionary journey, wherein humanity progresses from its collective infancy to intellectual and spiritual maturity. In this process, certain ideas and cultural elements evolve in response to new concepts aligned with humanity's intellectual advancement. The Baha'i perspective views humans as possessing both material and spiritual dimensions, which have dynamically developed throughout history. A key feature of this new understanding of humanity is the ability to create a unified global society composed of individuals from diverse backgrounds. The experiences of the Baha'i community highlight the emergence of dynamic local networks, wherein individuals from diverse backgrounds collaborate to produce and share essential local knowledge. These communities serve as model for new forms of social interaction, replacing outdated norms and ineffective cultural elements with more constructive alternatives. Furthermore, the Baha'i perspective emphasizes the establishment of a global order that ensures intellectual maturity, justice, and the well-being of all all people. This envisioned order is seen as a social contract to which every nation and people belong and must contribute. Across the world, the Baha'i community actively strives to implement the principles of this global order, demonstrating them as a practical model for collective progress. Drawing on key debates in religious studies and the sociology of religion, particularly the role of religion in social transformation, globalization, and knowledge production, these perspectives challenge static views of faith by presenting it as an active driver of social progress. In line with scholars such as Eliade and Wilfred Cantwell-Smith, this approach frames religious thought as evolving alongside human intellectual and social development. Moreover, the Baha'i vision of a unified global society contributes to discussions on religious role in globalization, moving beyond reactive models to illustrate how religious communities can actively foster global integration. I argue that the Baha'i perspective positions religion as an epistemic agent that shapes social norms and governance structures. Unlike conventional views that often portray religion as a protector of tradition, the Baha'i model demonstrates how religious teachings can catalyze social change, replacing restrictive norms with inclusive and participatory practices. Through its emphasis on community building and consultative decision-making, the Baha'i faith exemplifies how religious principles can contribute to the development of more just and equitable social framework. The second question is about how do these perspectives manifest in individual and collective Baha'i actions. During the first century of its emergence, the Baha'i community worldwide focused on maintaining internal unity and enduring external discrimination and oppression, particularly in Iran, while also advancing its mission and fostering capacity building. In the second century, through the systematic development of educational programs and the promotion of a culture of consultation and inquiry, the community gained experience in socializing the Baha'i principles and vision. This experience demonstrated that understanding and applying Baha'i principles is a long-term process requiring sustained efforts in nurturing the capacities of successive generations, learning from others' experiences, and collaborating with like-minded individuals. In the Baha'i perspective, individuals, communities, and institutions function as three interconnected and collective elements within an unprecedented system. Rather than engaging in power struggles, they focus on recognizing and cultivating their capacities to contribute to the collective well-being of society, fostering an environment where others can also thrive. Recent Baha'i documents indicate that the relationships among these three elements are structured around deliberative dialogue and shared learning, transforming forces such as competition, domination, division, and paternalism into collaborative and inclusive frameworks. The realization of the Baha'i vision in practice unfolds through two key avenues. First, socioeconomic initiatives aimed at community development, and second, engaged participation in broader societal discourses. Through these approaches, Baha'is bring their vision to life by promoting individual spiritual growth and broader social and material transformation. This framework encourages individuals to embrace their role as dedicated agents of social and economic progress in their own locality. The Baha'i experience challenges conventional sociological perspective on faith-based communities by demonstrating how religion can serve as an active force in shaping innovative social structures, participatory governance, and knowledge production. Unlike traditional religious hierarchies that concentrate authority in centralized institutions, the Baha'i model redefines religious governance through a decentralized yet coordinated system in which individuals, communities, and institutions collaborate within a non-hierarchical framework. This directly counters dominant sociological theories that associate religious authority with power struggles and institutional control. Furthermore, the Baha'i vision emphasizes on consultation and collective inquiry reframes religion not merely as a transmitter of fixed traditions, but as a dynamic agent of social learning and knowledge creation. By actively engaging in socioeconomic initiatives and global discourses, the Baha'i community exemplifies how religion can transcend doctrinal preservation to become a driver of both value-driven and structural progress. This case study, which I did, contributes to broader discussion on the intersection of faith, development, and governance, illustrating how religious communities can play a proactive role in addressing contemporary societal challenges. And the second question, how has the agency of the Baha'i community, despite repression and discrimination, shaped Iran's social and political discourse? The emergence of the Baha'i faith in 19th century Iran marked the beginning of a community that, to this day, remains denied official recognition and systematically deprived of fundamental human and civil rights. Despite persistent persecution, the Iranian Baha'i community has upheld its principles in its interactions with both society and state institutions. However, as a marginalized group, their participation and initiatives continue to be constrained by the country's political and legal structures. The case of the Baha'i community in Iran provides a compelling example of how religious minorities navigate systematic repression while striving to assert their agency. The agency of the Baha'i community, Iranian Baha'i community under persecution, challenges conventional narratives of victimhood, often associated with marginalized groups. Rather than remaining passive recipients of oppression, Baha'is in Iran have actively engaged in social, educational, and economic initiatives despite severe restriction. Historically, they played a crucial role in expanding literacy and establishing modern schools that contributed significantly to Iran's educational system. Institutions that were ultimately shut down by government decree in 1934. Nevertheless, Iranian Baha'is have continued to contribute across various sectors, including gender equality, women's empowerment programs, industry, agriculture, artistic initiatives, and community-driven development. By creating alternative spaces for participation, the Baha'i community not only challenges state-imposed restrictions, but also offers critical insights into the resilience and agency of marginalized religious groups, highlighting their role as active agents of social transformation. In many religiously governed political systems, dominant religious institutions define national identity and establish frameworks of exclusion to maintain their authority. In Iran, after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the clerical establishment has systematically denied Baha'is legal recognition and fundamental rights, portraying them as both a political and theological threat. Theologically, many clerics oppose the emergence of a new faith after Islam as it directly challenges their interpretive authority and privileged status. Momen in 2005 argues that the convergence of theological dominance and economic motivations has been a central factor driving the persecution of Baha'is over the past 2 centuries. Built on Momen's argument, I argue that opposition to the Baha'i faith in Iran is largely fueled by a fear of the alternative culture fostered through interactions between Baha'is and their fellow citizens. This evolving culture challenges the dominant religious narrative and disrupts the state-controlled ideological structure. This analysis adds to broader discussions on how religious states regulate minority identities and suppress alternative perspectives that threaten their authority. The construction of the other plays a central role in the political and social mechanism of exclusion, serving as a tool to marginalize and control minority groups. The Iranian state and religious authorities have strategically framed the Baha'i community in ways that justify their marginalization, initially as infidels, later as foreign agents, and eventually as threats to national security. This process of othering serves multiple functions. It deflects attention from government corruption, reinforces ideological unity, and suppresses challenges to the dominant political religious discourse. The Baha'i experience serves as a powerful example of how religious minorities are often depicted as existential threat to national identity. This framing is not exclusive to Iran, but reflects a broader pattern, as Fox 2008 suggests, where state authorities use religious exclusion as a tool for control. In Iran, the othering of religious minorities, such as the Baha'is case, is central to the state strategy of presenting any cultural, political, or economic developments outside its control as direct threats to the established order. actively enforced by state institutions, this strategy exacerbates divisions among the nation's diverse ethnic, cultural, and religious communities. These dynamics resonate with broader sociological analysis like Castle's 2011, which emphasize how the strategic manipulation of identity construction is used to solidify dominant power structures and justify the suppression of alternative religious, political, and intellectual movements. Beyond religious persecution, opposition to the Baha'i faith in Iran is also driven by its impact on social discourse as its unique approach to political engagement. Instead of resorting to partisan activism or direct confrontation with state power, the Baha'i approach emphasizes societal and intellectual transformation through nonviolent participation in the public sphere, collaborative community building activities, and fostering inclusive public spaces for deliberative dialogue. This approach challenged conventional theories of political resistance, which prioritize direct opposition to authoritarian regime, as argued by Chenoweth and Stephen 2011. In conclusion, the systematic persecution and imprisonment of Baha'is in Iran reflect the state's deliberate attempts to suppress their vision and societal influence. Yet, despite ongoing repression, awareness of the Baha'i faith and its lived experiences has steadily increased, particularly among Iranian intellectuals, activists, and human rights advocates. These trends suggest that the regime, even if indirectly, perceived the Baha'i community's social model as a challenge to the very structures of injustice, corruption, and authoritarianism upon which theocratic power is built. Against this backdrop, I propose a conceptual framework termed the paradox of suppressed alternatives, in short PSA. This framework posits that authoritarian regimes often recognize the transformative potential of marginalized groups, not through acknowledgement, but through active repression and vilification. Drawing on the Iranian Baha'i experience, PSA suggests that regimes target alternative models of justice and equity precisely because they expose the moral and structural weaknesses of authoritarian rule. In this context, the state's suppression of Baha'i social initiatives paradoxically underscores their capacity to inspire societal change. The greater the contrast between a group's values and those of the regime, the more intensely it is portrayed as a threat. The case of the Iranian Baha'i Communities Agency reveals also that achieving a more inclusive Iranian society requires more than just political reforms. It necessitates a profound reimagining of identity, belonging, and social participation. The Baha'i experience illustrates that genuine societal transformation is a gradual process, propelled by sustained cultural and intellectual engagement. By challenging exclusionary frameworks and advocating for the institutionalization of diversity, the Baha'i community's efforts contribute to broader conversation on religious pluralism, social integration, and the enduring role of religious agency in shaping both political and societal change. Ultimately, their resilience and vision serves as a powerful example of how marginalized communities can drive progressive social change even under oppressive conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raha. That was fantastic. So let me open the floor for questions, and then I will also ask questions, a couple of questions from you. So any questions or comments?
Actually, I prefer comment while Dr. Nader Saidi and others are here because it helps me to improve my argument and also my article. Yeah.
Thank you, Carl.
Fine, thank you.
Dr. Saidi, would you like to begin?
I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about the initiative of the Baha'i community of Iran creating BIHE in terms of this pattern of agency and resistance that you are speaking about.
Yeah, in the article, in the actual article, because it's really a short of that. I wanted just to touch upon the argument and the three questions that I tried to answer it. But yes, BIHE, it was a kind of response to this deprivation of access to higher education for Baha'i youth since the Islamic Revolution happened. But it was not the only one. It is recognized actually worldwide because it started asking or involving other professors and researchers around the world. But there are other initiatives, especially what happened when the number of people who are arrested by the government since 2005 and till now, actually, that the Baha'i women mostly who really wanted to actually support families that both parents got sentences, imprisonment sentences, and then these women started sharing their houses with the children of those families, or for example, they started a kind of project to helping families who really they had some challenges to go and visit their dear ones in prison. The other initiatives, which is really, really interesting for me, it was the children classes and junior youth classes in Iran. While it is not even for the Baha'is to come together, but the Baha'i families started inviting also their neighbors and other Iranian families, because these kind of like moral issues, committed suicide, increasing committed suicide among the family, among the junior youth, and especially women who face home domestic violence increase in Iran. These Baha'i families opened their houses for these youths, junior youths and women. And it was not just caring, but also educating them with the materials that could really help them to have a kind of self-confidence, how to share their feeling with their families, with their own families, how to solve the problems. And then another one also is just what I'm saying is just through the lens of women, what they are doing, Baha'i women, what they are doing in Iran after 2005 is that another one is that most of them they started opening their houses toward other women to have a kind of dialogue with them as a mentor or as a counselor. So they not only educate themselves to be a counselor or mentor, but also help others to take this kind of agency for their own family. And the religion was not anymore, the among the people, it's not a problem. But when the government comes to this picture, then it would be. Yeah. So BRHA is one, I think, is the other things are going on.
You may just say a few words of what is BIHE. I know it, but I'm not sure everybody knows here what it is.
Oh yeah, so it's an institution, underground, actually university. We call it underground university. I studied my bachelor and master there. I think I was the third generation who started this, who joined this initiative in Iran. And it was very simple because we didn't that time we didn't have building. Actually, it was our home. So those professors and educated Baha'is who were alive still after Islamic Revolution, because many of them, they were executed or kidnapped, or some of them, they left Iran. It was a kind of force for them because their life was a danger. So some of them, they came together and they started this idea that how they can help youth to continue their higher education. Initially, it was like 4 or 5 subjects that we could study. For example, sociology, psychology, engineering, literature, and I think dentistry, I think, I'm not sure, but or chemistry, I think. And then when the first group graduated, they started helping the first, that those actually professors or educated people who initiated this idea. So eventually, the number of people who were helping this institution increased, and then they could also introduce themselves. I think after 8 years, they introduced themselves to universities outside of Iran, and then I think the help started when one of the university delegation came to Tehran, and he actually observed what's happening there, because it was not believable for them that a group of people can start a university by themselves in such a vast, expanded area, because students used to come from each and every city in Iran to Tehran for 3 days, and it was like class after class we had. I mean, every 2 hours we had one class for just, and it was based on self-study. The teacher was just answer our questions. It was not teaching. It was just answer our question and introduce other articles or books. So it was mostly self-studies. When the first time I came, I started studying at Pune University. Everything was very different for me. Even now, I teach at Turku University, master students, and it's always like, for me, it's like a new things, because I have never been a student. I always studied by myself, and I never teach something to others. I was always asking the question, and the teacher always helped me to understand the argument and tell me that how you can go through other things and find your question, find your answers. So still, I have this attitude toward knowledge. I don't know if you can say something more, because you are also collaborating with BIC, as far as I know.
BIC, Baha'i Institute of Higher Education, is one of the most interesting events in terms of higher education in the entire world, namely an oppressed minority who is banned from going to university in Iran, legally banned. They, instead of surrendering, they go and create an underground university, and that's the form of response to oppression. Instead of becoming like the oppressor and using violence and culture of dehumanization in a vicious circle, they engage in patterns of action which questions the root causes of oppression, of injustice. And so in this case, promotion of knowledge. It was a total act of resistance confronting this most dehumanizing policy of the clerics in Iran, but everything about it was heroic. I mean, the students, the teachers, the staff, they knew that by participation in this BIHE, their life, their properties would be in danger, and frequently it was actually in danger and raided and so on. Yet they continued and expanded, and so teaching of science and social science and emphasizing the Baha'i ideas of oneness of humanity, universal peace, social justice, and so on. These were the ways that identity of resistance is shaped. Is a new model. I should say that I myself, I was professor of sociology at Khartoum College and later at UCLA. I was participating in teaching sociology indirectly sometimes. Right now, since I am retired, it's 2 years I'm retired, I teach courses some at BIHE, but that had been the highlight of my academic life, the greatest honor of my academic life, not the courses I taught at UCLA or Khartoum College, because there are so many like me who can teach these courses, but teaching courses at BIHE for the oppressed young Baha'is, that is really the greatest honor of all my life.
Could I ask a question? So I've often thought of the relationship between the state in Iran and the Baha'i community as one of religious contrast, but things that you've said today have made me think that there's other structural, philosophical, social philosophical ideas that are also a threat. So if you think, the Iranian regime is exceptionally hierarchical, right? I mean, it's a vertical structure with a single person at top, right? And then it goes down. Whereas you've described Baha'i ideal as decentralized, horizontal, local. And it strikes me that that's actually, in some ways, more of a threat than religious doctrine, right? There's nothing more threatening to hierarchy than anti-hierarchy, right? So that was the real revelation for me from your talk. So my question has to do with other minorities in Iran. How receptive are Balochis or Kurds or other groups that have nationalist or independence or at least self-determination movements? How receptive are they to this idea of a more decentralized, anti-hierarchical social structure? Have the Baha'is been successful in convincing other minorities in Iran that this is a powerful mechanism to fight their oppression of the regime? Does that make sense?
I don't know if Dr. Saidi, would you like to share your thoughts? I can also share something after you.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, based on my studies, because I had also some interviews with Kurdish people after the Mahsa movement started. So I know that they have also some ideas about this decentralized governments, or to start it. There are some similarities actually, but I found, which is different from the Baha'i community in Iran and other communities, minorities, sorry, like Baluchis, Arab, Turkmen, Azeris, or Turkish Lurs, that somehow there is a group among them, small group among them, that is really tied to the government. Even within the Kurdish groups, because they are the most political groups in Iran, that they are diverse, even within themselves, they have diverse political thoughts and ideology. So there is a small group always, which they are really tied to the government. What does it mean exactly? It means that that group, that small group of people who tied to the government, they can change the thoughts or the narratives which is going on within that minorities, for example, Baluchis or Arabs or others. But within the Baha'i community in Iran, as far as, because I grew up in Iran most of the time, I mean, I left Iran when I was 35 years old. So what is happening is that always there is a negotiation between the Baha'i community and the state. So it is not that they are trying to find a way to respect the government request or whatever they wanted, and also stick to their own values and principles. So, and that is why I think that the state is really worried about what's going on within the Baha'i community always. And this consultative environment and approach among, not only among the individuals and Baha'i communities within one city, but also among the cities. For example, it was more than now actually that some delegation from different cities comes together and read the reality of their societies together in local level and national level, and then make a decision and then share and then negotiate it with the state. Nowadays, we don't have it, because nowadays, I mean, since 2011, when for the last time again, the government asked that all this, a small group of people who were like managing or directing the whole Baha'i community in Iran. So that's the difference. And now the state lost this one out even, because they stopped. They said you have to stop whatever you had before that, as like a group of people who are leading, not leading, it's not a good word, it's like managing. Now the state is like the spread. They don't know what's going on in the Baha'i community, and they are really surprised at how the Baha'i community is still managing themselves. They think that there is a structure, but who is the leader? There is no leader, because there is always a kind of, consultative, or like people are consult together to solve the problem. It doesn't mean that they don't have problem. There are lots of problem, but it's as all the communities they have, but they try to keep this one alive, this attitude. That's the way I think, actually.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sorry, Dr.
Please go.
Saidi. No, it's okay. I will ask later, please.
Okay. Something that Dr. Pearson mentioned is very important. Usually in Iran, when there is a question why the Baha'is are persecuted so severely by the Islamic Republic of Iran, or by the clerics from the inception of the Baha'i faith, the usual answer is that Baha'is have a different theological perspective. They don't think Islam is the last religion of God. and therefore the clerics who believe that after Islam no religion would come, and therefore the Baha'i faith is not from God, therefore they persecute it. I always mention that this is a very superficial explanation. Christians also in the West, for example, they don't believe that after Christianity there would be new religions. They don't believe, for instance, the Baha'is are from God or something like that, but that does not mean that they engage in elimination of all civil rights for different types of religion. So the question is not having theological differences, but the question is why theological difference becomes an occasion and justification for oppression. And that goes back to the fact that it is correct that Baha'i faith had a different theological perspective than Islam, but that difference primarily is rooted in the fact, as Raha mentioned before, that the Baha'i faith perceives religion as something historical and not something dead and static. So just as at the same time that Marx was talking about historical consciousness and dialectical perspective on society, or Dilthey was talking about similar historical consciousness, the Baha'i faith in Iran is the same time really talks about this historical consciousness even at the level of the religion, even at the level of the Word of God. Hegel, for instance, has this absolute historical orientation, but he stops at the level of religion. So, for example, he believes that Christianity represents the last expression of religious truth, the same way that Muslims believe that Islam is the last expression of religious truth. Whereas the Baha'is believe that everything, including the Word of God, including religion, is historical, is dynamic, it has to change. And that means that religion is not an isolated absolute, different from or opposed to society, but it's part of society. And so in organic relation with different institutions of the society. And therefore, the changes in different aspects of the society requires changes in religion, and vice versa. Religion affects society, society affects religion. And on the basis of this historical perspective, therefore, for the Baha'is, religion, and particularly right now, to be religious, to be oriented towards God, requires a new set of consciousness about society and culture, a new conception of civilization. So the first thing that the Baha'is emphasized from the beginning was separation of church and state, that religion should be a cause of peace, and therefore affirmation of the freedom of conscience and so on. In the context of Iran, for instance, this issue by itself, now aside from the concept of democracy, the Baha'i faith was the first doctrine that talked about political democracy in Iran, about gender equality, about universal peace and globalization, about any of these issues. The Baha'i faith was more than 100 years ahead of Iranian culture and Iranian intellectuals. But just the fact that the Baha'i faith emphasized that to have political democracy, to have social justice, the presupposition of that is religious freedom, separation of church and state, and so on. This by itself, which only right now Iranian intellectuals have started to understand this, and this has become part of the culture of of Iran, which is so delightful, this fact. But this is something that 170 years ago, 180 years ago, was mentioned by the Baha'i Faith as its key principle. And so these elements are what made the clerics of Iran always to fear the Baha'i Faith. It was a new religion, but it was a new religion which had a totally different conception of society, of politics, of culture, of identity, of religion, and so on. And it was progressive, and they knew that it is a challenge to their static and often reactionary point of view. And so they had to make sure that the Iranians would not be exposed to the Baha'i teachings so that their authority would be challenged. And still that is the case. So every attempt to silence the Baha'is, to make sure that the Baha'is would be excluded from the public sphere, is done because every aspect of the clerical traditional ideas, this ossified culture has been questioned by the Baha'i Faith.
Thank you, Dr. Saidi. Raha, I do have the pleasure of getting you offline and talking to you about other things. So that's my privilege. But I was just wondering about, as I was listening to you, I think you were talking about the government and the Baha'is and state and the policies, but something that I have always found missing, a missing gap in the literature on the topic is about the relationship between Baha'i community and the society. So if you remember, during the early age of the Islamic Republic, the mullahs were pushing quite hard on non-Baha'i Iranians to, I don't know, sell their Baha'i neighbors or kind of like do all sorts of intelligence work for on behalf of the state and be a part of like the elbow of oppression. Now, I often wondered that whether I'm sure that they were part of the society, and that's where I want your view. I know there's a part of society that was bought into the narrative of the state, but I wondered whether through the eyes of the Baha'i community, whether there was a resistance from the non-Baha'i community towards the policies, discriminatory policies of the state. Like, would that have an impact? Not that they become Baha'is, but I wondered that tolerance and respect and interactions that exist in Iranian culture in a way. I wonder if you could comment on it, and I was wondering whether that's a missing piece in your work as well, because you go back to the society quite often, but I wondered if there is a place for expanding on this relationship between Baha'i community and the Iranian Baha'is and Iranian non-Baha'is. Thank you.
Yeah, you are right. Very quickly, I mentioned that how very recently, I mean, since 2008, 2010, mostly from onward, that this civil society in Iran, if we can call them civil society, that they're intellectuals, like-minded people, writers, journalists, artists, started asking and questioning about the Baha'is. And it was the reason, what I can see, because when at the time of Ahmadinejad presidency, if you remember, they started arresting all these people who are thinking differently from the state narratives. And the prison become a place that all these people came together, including Baha'is. And they started learning from each other, or maybe first listening to each other. For example, when I was in prison, I was in solitary confinement, but when this Green Revolution happened, because they asked mass of university students and professors, so some of them they brought them to my cell, and then they started asking that who you are you, I mean, so we started talking, and I said that I'm a Baha'i activist, and because of this happened, so I'm here. and in prison of even Evin prison also, it happened largely because many prison Baha'i prisoners and also other. This is one thing, and the second thing is that when the Iranian society, non-Baha'is, more and more lost their trust to the state narratives, they started asking the Baha'is that what is the truth. So for example, in national TV, there is another program, it's going on at the time of Ramadan, that they were saying that Baha'i is doing this and that, and it's eventually not that distant for during the years. I mean, more than one time I read it that 35,000 anti-Baha'i propagandas happen in media, and my information is for 2018, I think. Maybe now it's increased. So then the Iranian society started asking Baha'is, what is the truth? Is it true that what they are saying in national TV? And it happened a lot to me and my families and my friends who are living in Iran, that are neighbors, colleagues, they are coming and asking us. And we started sharing what's going on. So yes, it may be, maybe I have to elaborate more about this, that what's happening, that the Iranian society started learning more about the Baha'is. But before 2010, it was another story, because as you mentioned also, right after the Islamic Revolution, not only Baha'is, but many other like-minded people, or people who were just working for the Pahlavi regime, they arrested, kidnapped, executed, tortured, and imprisoned. So the Baha'i community started, it was like inward looking toward themselves, protecting their youth, children, women, and families who faced different discrimination. And so for many years, we were just inside ourselves. And then when I think, yeah, it was 2006, at the time of Ahmadinejad, 2006, I think it was 2006, 2008.
I remember even during Khatami, there were a group of women who were asking for civil rights of Baha'is. They pushed for it. But I don't think they got anywhere because we were women and they didn't want to listen to us, and we were just students, and who cares. But I remember there was a meeting before Khatami became president, and in that meeting there was a specific mention and push for civil rights of Baha'is, and I didn't hear, but it just came back again after Karoubi. I remember that Karoubi started to.
Yeah, at the time of Khatami, I was part of student movements when it happened in Tehran. And I was with many of these people right now. They are in prison now again. So it was not safe to say I'm a Baha'i at all. I was active with them. I was writing with them all these articles for the Shiraz University. I was part of them, but I always asked them to don't write my name, or if they ask to, hey, it's okay, we want to write. It was like I never say that why I'm saying that when I'm requesting to omit my name, because I knew that if they will very quickly they would recognize my family because Sabet is mostly a Baha'i surname. Yes, that time also it was not easy to say Baha'i, but then later on, now it's very easy to say it, and I can say that many Iranians, they have a good approach. Not all of them. Maybe there are some people who have some questions still, but many of them.
Thank you very much. In the light of, we had a very lively discussion. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Saidi, for joining us. It was a pleasure meeting you and having you in our session. Thank you very much, Raha, for accepting our invitation. For everyone who joined us, thank you, Carl. I know you had a very busy schedule. Thank you for being committed to that.